Hello there, good evening. Thank you so much for being with us here on the program tonight. I'm Wyatt Sharp. Now, if you are well invested into the social media world, then you will know that things have been changing rapidly over the course of the past several days. If you are a frequent Instagram user, you may have noticed now that below users' names on Instagram, there is a number, oftentimes a very random number. This is what's called a Threads identification number that is being used to identify which number in line people were to sign up to use this new app called Threads. Threads is essentially being described as Twitter 2.0. It's an application that was unveiled by Meta, the company, of course, that oversees both Facebook and Instagram, in an effort to provide that unique and original Twitter experience that many people feel has been let go after the acquisition of Twitter by Elon Musk. Now, both Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, they have been going after each other metaphorically over the course of the past several days on various social media apps in various ways, because Musk feels as if Zuckerberg has entirely copied the idea of Twitter with his new application, Threads. Nevertheless, though, users of the Threads application are praising the app, saying that they believe it does not bring as many of the negative aspects as an application like Twitter may. It does not encompass some of the negativity, some of the trolls, so-called trolls that people often talk about that fill the comment section with your post when posting something, especially when that something is in the world of news or in the world of politics or what have you. So people are happy with the application Threads. However, people are still staying on Twitter. The powerful thing is that because Threads is now owned by Meta, they connected it to Instagram, which many people believe was a genius move in order to get people to sign up for this new Threads app, because it could not be simpler. In just a couple of days, really, since Threads first launched, they already have over 100 million people using the app. For comparison, Twitter, that has been around now for many, many years, has a couple 100 million users daily, which is a fantastic number, but Threads, that has been around for only a couple of days, already has more than what Twitter could have had at this stage in the game, and could very soon have an equivalent amount of users and an equivalent amount of resources and features as Twitter. The resources aspect of things is interesting, though, of course, because of the fact that it is owned by Meta. It's not an application like Blue Sky, which of course many people thought was popular. It's not an application like Mastodon, which people quickly turned to as alternatives when they felt that Twitter could have very well went down the drain. People turned to these new applications as alternatives, but they didn't have the resources because they frankly didn't have the capacity to have a large budget, something that is needed, obviously, in order to create a successful social media platform and one that can compete with Twitter, which is why people believe Threads will succeed, because it can have that large budget, as it has access to the same resources that an application like Facebook and Instagram does, because again, it is owned by Meta. But don't take my word for it. I want to welcome now to the program Steve Wozniak. Of course, you know him. He co-founded Apple along with his late business partner, Steve Jobs, in 1976. Now people turn to him for his insight and for his analysis on many issues, not just with the story that we are talking about here today, but also anything to do with technology, with business, with finance. So I wanted to ask him about some of these concerns that people have about an increasingly polarizing social media environment, the role that social media is playing in our day-to-day lives currently, and what he makes specifically of the ongoing battle between Meta, Twitter, Elon Musk, and Mark Zuckerberg.
I look at it as just business competition that a number of companies are trying to have, Twitter-like apps to take over the vacancy, because Twitter's sort of been economically and, a number of users been going downhill a while. with Elon's radical moves, although I don't think those moves are bad. Now, so Mark Zuckerberg said, well, what do we do here at Meta? We have all sorts of different things. We can only take on things that are really big. And we've already got control of a lot of the market and a lot of users that are on our side and favor us. And it's just taking that advantage to open up a sizable competition to Twitter. Of course, you have Blue Sky and others like that, but they're from small entities, so they can't get 100 million people real quick to sign up. And I don't know. Is somebody dropping Twitter and going over to Threads? I think the sort of people that even dislike Twitter or what's going on there are not the sort of people that like Meta that much. And I think they just look at it as something they've kind of got to get into. An awful lot of them are media folks or ones trying to become, the presenters, of information. And I think they're just trying not to be left out. But I don't really see, are we somehow going to have more of our time put into social media because of this new Threads? I don't think so. I just don't see a big jump necessarily. It's a very admirable kind of competitive threat, because look when Android came out to Apple, something like that. It was another entry from a very market entry from a huge entity, and they put a lot into it. So, I don't know. Doing things like Twitter first don't necessarily hold you forever. Twitter's a big brand recognition is the number of users is huge, and a lot of people use it. I myself am not the best to comment on this because I don't really use either one of them.
And so I suppose I want to pick up with some of the business aspects of things here. I mean, you mentioned that Meta already has a large portion, a large amount of control of the actual market itself. What Mark Zuckerberg and Meta did made things quite easy. I mean, you can transfer from your Instagram account to create a Threads account rather easily. I suppose, how significant is it? I mean, Twitter has a couple 100 million users daily, and as you mentioned, this new app Threads already has about 100 million users. So how hard would that have been from your perspective for Meta to get that amount of traction to an app that's only been around now for a few days?
I really don't know. It's a brilliant marketing move, but that doesn't mean it's part of Meta has control over others and can kind of force them into it. I think it's just that Meta already has a substantial user base, and I don't see it as they can force certain things on some of their users. You're going to have to modify this. You're going to have to leave this much information. You're going to have to agree to new terms. They can do that sort of thing, but this is more just a good marketing move to be in the business. I mean, Meta's huge, so anything they do has to be something that is typically huge. And with Meta, it starts with user volume, and then they turn that into other kinds of profits later. So not surprised it's happening. Twitter, I think I actually admire Elon Musk. He's going out there and trying some strict things to make it for the users and not the abusers. There are a lot of ways abusers could get into Twitter and now Threads and manipulate what's going on, what you're hearing, all that. And I think Elon's trying to cut down on that in realistic ways. So I actually wish him luck.
And the role that some of these companies are playing, I mean, you have stepping aside from the Twitter and Meta issue of things for a moment here, you have a company like TikTok, for example, that is becoming very controversial politically in the US with lawmakers looking to ban the app outright in some states, other states just banning it on government devices. You have a very high number of people, teens, for example, today using these social media applications. What do you make of the role that social media seems to be playing increasingly, not just in everyday lives, but in things like the political discourse and in the dialogue of day-to-day affairs?
Sure, it brings out the hypocrisy in us, which is natural. In other words, we don't say that Facebook should not be taking data from other countries, or or Twitter should not, or Google, or any of these companies. We don't say it when they're American. Cisco, who makes the routers, should not be gathering data from other countries and keeping it. We just don't say that. We don't really have values. We just make it pretend. We pretend like we have values. The people that are against TikTok may be reading the news, all this great, realistic news, that somehow the Chinese are getting an advantage on us. What the heck? The people that use Twitter, don't say that. Sorry, somebody's coming. Okay. Yeah, the people that use Twitter aren't the ones that are voting that it should be somehow made abandoned, gotten rid of. It's just too hokey. Everything you do with email and everything, and any social web is kind of very open to those who want to steal it.
And just before we conclude here, moving forward from where we are right now, the fact that Twitter is, as we've both said, has a large amount of users daily. Instagram has a large amount of users daily. Facebook, virtually every social media platform that people hear about, that people talk about, is being used by at least hundreds of millions of people on a day-to-day basis. Do you foresee any negative consequences to that, given the fact that it is becoming such a big part in people's day-to-day lives?
Well, I do, because people are very easily manipulatable. It's like a huge broadcasting amplifier, these social webs. So I avoid it myself. Also, it's very addictive, and you just get in habits and habits. Addictive behavior. Oh, I'm for getting away from it whenever you spot it happening to you, and trying to be just yourself. And it's too bad. And elections will be influenced by it worldwide. So the social web's a much bigger problem than looking at TikTok. I mean, TikTok feeds me nice dog saving videos.
Okay, we will leave it there tonight. That is Steve Wozniak, co-founder of Apple. Thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Okay, thanks. My honor.
Well, if you've been watching the program over the course of the past several months, you will know that I've interviewed various people from this new network that is getting a lot of attention. They've gained a lot of contributors that are notable people in the political world. They've even gained notable hosts, people that have previously worked for some of the big three news networks like Fox News and CNN and MSNBC. One of the people that works there currently on their morning show, Morning in America, Markie Martin, is joining me now. Markie, thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh my gosh, Wyatt, thank you so much for inviting me on the Wyatt Sharp Show. I'm so excited.
I've been so interested in the growth of a network like News Nation, the fact that it really only started a couple of years ago, and it is still seen by many in the political world as just as credible as one of the major networks, one of the major three networks, as you often hear about in the media world of things. You garner just as impressive guest. I mean, you personally have interviewed former President Trump on the network, even as an example. So I guess just where has this growth come from, given the fact that it's so new and something, you don't see that very often when, there's so many people wanting to be in this media world, and not often is it that they grow this quickly.
Yeah. And I think, at this point in the game, so many people already have their chosen networks, right? They have their established routines. And people are really giving us a chance. I was one of the first correspondent hires on about 3 years ago, before we were even on air with News Nation. And speaking for myself, but I could speak for several people that joined, both now and in the original mission of the network, is that we wanted to kind of take away the divisiveness of, a lot of the news and the journalism that you see on air these days. We wanted to bring civil discourse back to the news. We wanted fair and balanced journalism. We don't like living in echo chambers. You turn on any other news network these days, especially cable news, and they're echo chambers. And all of us have really been dedicated to the mission of getting both sides of the story, garnering a wide array of perspectives, beliefs, political opinions. And I think viewers on the other side of that television screen are giving us a chance, because I think we kind of came to fruition at a time when Americans really wanted something different to choose from.
And I mean, I guess pick up on that a little bit more because you have some of the major networks that people often turn to. That's what, you mentioned there. And oftentimes, every night after, say, dinner or in the mornings when you're getting ready, people just kind of by habit will flip to their preferred channel. People might flip to the channel that has guests on that are most,
Yep.
preferable to their views. So I guess the thing that I've been noticing, at least with a network like News Nation, is it seems to be guests from both sides of the spectrum. You might have a guest that was just on MSNBC, and then right after that, a guest that just came from Fox News. It kind of seems full circle. So, how important is that from your perspective?
Extremely important. And to your point, you turn on just about any of our programs these days, from Morning in America through Ashley Banfield at night, and the breadth of guests that we now have and we're able to bring in for live interviews. It's grown tremendously over the past 3 years, and we're getting names that all of the other, established networks have been getting for a long time. And not only are viewers giving us a chance, I think a lot of the experts who join the other, networks on a panel or as a guest interview or what have you, are starting to also think of us and recognize us as being a very reliable, right down the middle news source. And so to get those guests and also to get the hosts that we have now, I mean, look at our evening lineup. Leland Vittert, Elizabeth Vargas, Chris Cuomo, Dan Abrams, Ashley Banfield. Those are big names in the industry, and to bring those over also sends a signal to viewers, to industry experts in whatever field it is. It sends a signal that we're here to play ball too, along with everybody else.
And I suppose more generally, though, like with the growth of the TV business over the years, you've had the rise and the fall of various networks. I mean, a network like Fox News, for example, they just went through their Dominion lawsuit as an example, as it relates to some of the claims that they were making in relation to the 2020 election. You have some people who just are becoming less interested in news and in the politics because of the fact that it has become so polarizing and so divisive on both sides of the political spectrum. Where do you see not just News Nation, but just the news network atmosphere of things in general going, and how can they help contribute to reducing some of this polarization?
Yeah, you're totally right. And I think the past few years in politics has been really abrasive for a lot of people, Americans, just in everyday life, but also in the news and in the headlines as well. And for us, we have tried to really dedicate our time, our efforts to bringing in politicians from both sides. I'm sure you just saw we had that town hall with RFK Jr. A couple weeks ago, and I think there are networks who won't even have certain candidates on just because of their beliefs or how they vote, and we just don't subscribe to that. So I think we've done a really good job of having diverse guest panels, town halls. On Thursday, we have Chris Christie on, for a debate with Cuomo. And for the future of the news, I can only really speak for us at News Nation, but we're going to continue that approach forever. So viewers, if they tune in to us, can be guaranteed that they will hear something that they like, hear a perspective they may not have ever even thought of before, and everything will make them think. So that is what we're dedicated to, and that's what we can promise viewers for a long time to come.
And just before we conclude here too, I mean, there's been a lot of obviously big events that have taken place in the news. How hard, though, from your perspective, is it for a network like News Nation, or maybe it's easy, who knows, when big news breaks, given that you are so new, to provide adequate coverage and equivalent coverage to, again, some of those bigger networks out there?
It's a really great question. And, at this stage in the game, 3 years in, I would say it is Not difficult. I mean, we dispatch correspondents at all hours of the day. I can say that because I was one for 3 years, you know. You think you're going to go home and have a night with your family, and then you're on a 10 o'clock flight to, you know, Tulsa or East Palestine. I was there on the ground, boots on the ground for 2 weeks after the toxic train derailment. But the good thing is, you know, we don't have as many people, right, as some of the other established news networks. But the thing that we have going for us is that we have affiliate stations, Nexstar affiliate stations all over the country. So there are times when something huge breaks and we say, hey, we don't have a correspondent in place. We can't get a correspondent there till tonight or first thing tomorrow. And we'll tag, you know, we'll tap one of our local affiliates and say, hey, who do you have on the scene there? Can we use them for a hit for this show, a couple hours? And and oftentimes those people, those local reporters, I mean, they know that community better than we do. So to have them on the show, to offer perspective, latest on breaking news, that's a wealth of knowledge that we're able to tap into at News Nation.
Okay, we will leave it there. That's Markie Martin, co-anchor, alongside Adrian Bankert at Morning in America. Markie, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Wyatt. An excellent conversation.
All right. That's going to do it for the program tonight. Jackson Gosnell will be in the anchoring chair tomorrow. Be sure to tune in for more insight, more analysis with some of the top newsmakers in North America.